In today's episode of Decade Arcade, we are going to be jumping into the action adventure game from 2013 developed by Volition Studios, Saints Row 4. Is it worth dusting off in the current day and age, or is it just better off left to the wastelands of 2013? Jump in with me as we go over the pros, the cons, and the feelings of Saints Row 4 and figure out if it's worth your investment. Saints Row 3's story was jumping the shark a little bit and being zany and fun with it. If that one was jumping the shark, Saints Row 4 is you're jumping the shark, you get hit by a meteor, and right as the shark is about to eat you after getting hit by the meteor, you get abducted by aliens. Does that analogy make any sense? No, not really. And that's how I feel about the Saints Row 4 story, which does in fact deal with aliens. The story of Saints Row 3 felt like it had a balance while jumping the shark, and it successfully jumped the shark in a way where it felt fun. The story felt like it mattered a little bit more. Saints Row 4 just kind of throws the balance out the window, and they're just like, we're going to do these weird, zany things, and that's about it. It's just a vehicle to do stuff, and it doesn't feel like there's weight to it. And we'll get into that in a little bit when we talk about gameplay. Saints Row 4's story revolves around trying to stop a terrorist attack at the beginning of the game. The Saints manage to stop the terrorist attack, and in the process, they fall into the White House, and now they lead the country. And while leading the country, they get abducted by aliens. And those aliens decide to lock everyone up in simulations. And said simulations, eventually the Saints figure out we can get out of this, we can hack this to have superpowers. And so they have superpowers. And the gameplay mostly takes place in the simulations. It kind of lends itself just to you need to suspend your disbelief to the max to play and enjoy this game. And the superpowers themselves are ridiculously strong for no good reason. And that is my biggest gripe with the game is the superpowers. So the game basically takes a lot of inspiration from The Matrix, which is not exactly a bad thing. Good movies, besides the fourth one. We don't really talk about the fourth one. Actually, maybe we shouldn't really talk about this fourth one either. I'm kidding. It's an okay game, but I feel like the gameplay, adding superpowers, kind of ruins the tone of Saints Row. Via you getting these superpowers and the absurdity that is going on, your crew is not going to matter, your vehicles are not going to matter, and your gunplay is not going to matter. They have done nothing to evolve any of those mechanics. The baseline gameplay, gunplay, all that stuff, the gangs, everything feels dragged over from Saints Row 3. It does not feel like it evolves the game besides, hey, you have superpowers now, but those superpowers invalidate the whole point of Saints Row. It feels like you were taking your Pichu, evolving it into a Pikachu, that's Saints Row 3, right? And then for some reason it evolves into a Greymon. And you're like, that's not what I signed up for. Greymon is cool. Digimon is cool. But you were playing Pokemon. So what just happened here? That's like my feeling with Saints Row 4. Is it feels like it departs from Saints Row 3, does not honor Saints Row 3, besides the characters, and then it's just a whole different game. So, this is the part where you kind of think to yourself, how do the superpowers play out? Are they fun? And yes, they are fun, but they are so overpowered and all encompassing of the game itself that, like I said, you lose all of the baseline mechanics and you don't get to play with how Saints Row 3 plays. You're just now playing a superhero game, and those superpowers are overpowered. You legitimately just press the button, push the blast button, boom, the whole wave dies. Push the blast button, boom, the whole wave dies continuously. Oh, you're about to die somehow. You just push the super jump and now nothing can hit you. The AI and enemy design of the game does not accentuate the fact that you have superpowers now. The AI does not provide a challenge. The superpowers, you don't need to distinguish between using the foot blast and using the key blast thing. You don't need to try and do anything. Super running out accomplishes the same thing as super jumping out. There's no reason to really consider what you're doing. Just push one of the buttons. They are all a very valid oh shit button, and you're out of the fray. And they're also just ridiculously strong. So a lot of times you're just not really needing an oh shit button. You're just, here's the next wave. Boom. They're dead. Here's the next wave. Boom. They're dead. Gets kind of boring. Gets kind of redundant. Superpower traversal is fun, but it feels janky, feels clunky, feels 2013, I guess you could say. And if I wanted to bother with superpower traversal, I would just go play Spider-Man on the PS4 and PS5. That is flying and gliding through the city, and it's just works really, 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 really well. So it's like the superpower jumping around the city is fun, but there are some other games that feel like they do that better. So if that's exactly what you're looking for, go to Spider-Man. But if you've already played Spider-Man and you're looking for more, then I guess you could do this. But it feels like they could have stood to update it more when they did the remaster, I guess. As far as why everything feels kind of like it's just tacked on to Saints Row 3, when you look into what happened with the development, they were making a DLC for Saints Row 3 called Enter the Matrix, or Enter the Dominatrix, I think is what it's actually called. And then they decided to expand upon that and make it a full game. But besides the superpowers, I don't feel like they expanded upon Saints Row 3. So while these superpowers could have been cool as their own little DLC segment, fleshing it out into a full game where it's just the superpowers that are the new thing and trying to make a whole big story out of it that feels not connected to the third game just doesn't ring true for me. So the superpowers feel like you just typed in /God mode. What makes the game still work for me the most as a Saints Row game is the characters. The characters are still fun in their frat boy, like college days humor sort of way. They're stupid. They're not like expertly written, but they're fun. They're funny. They have their own quirks and charms to them. And the main point where this kind of elevates the game to a better level is when you do their side quests and you do quests for them specifically. You get a lot of interaction with those characters. There's a lot of stuff going on. And when you're doing their specific side quests to eventually unlock their superpowers, you aren't able to use superpowers. So it returns the game back to a Saints Row 3 feel. Storylines with the side events feel a little bit better. The gameplay feels better. Everything just feels a little bit better because it's returning back to the Saints Row 3 play point. But that also is an argument of when you're playing those side quests, you can really tell that they didn't do much besides, hey, you're God mode now. Because you play the Saints Row 4 side quests where you don't have superpowers and you feel like you're playing Saints Row 3. It's a good thing, but also kind of a bad because this game came out only 2 years after the first Saints Row, and it doesn't feel like they elevated it. It just feels like we took the game, tacked this thing in, that's it. As far as interacting with the superpowers, you get skill points via collecting these little data clusters throughout the city. Again, they're kind of fun to collect because you're just traversing around the city, but the overall way of which you're upgrading your character is just click, 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 click. There's no building your character. And everything that you're buying with your skill points is just less cooldown, more damage. It's basically it. So it doesn't really feel like they matter. Like you could do a run of this game with like, I'm not going to use upgrades. And then you could do the run where you use all the upgrades. And they would feel pretty much the same. Like, it's again another system that feels like we tacked this on to try and add some depth into the thing that we just tacked on. It does not feel like a cohesive, like really well thought out design process for me. It's just the superpowers are overpowered. You don't even really need the upgrades for them. The upgrades just make them even more overpowered. And it doesn't really add anything to So it's fun as a game, but it feels like it ruins the heart of Saints Row 3. And I really enjoyed Saints Row 3. So as a whole, the game gets some dings from me. It's an okay game. Again, similar to the side character quest stories and everything, the most fun in Saints Row 4 is like the Genki arenas and like the random little sub events that you could do, like the insurance fraud. And there's all sorts of like little cute nods to other video game genres throughout the game, like some textbook adventures you can gather and other stuff such as that. Not going to get too much into spoiler, but they're cute little fun sub versions of the story, and they harken back more so for me to what made Saints Row 3 so great. Is the game worth your investment? As a whole, for $5 on a Steam sale or something, yes, it's worth the investment. For $20, it gets a little bit shakier, but it's still probably pretty worth your investment. Buy the game if you want the raunchy, crazy college humor type of deal, or buy the game if you want like the fun superpower stuff, even if it does look a little ugly and it controls a little wonky. It's a fun enough game for $5 to $20. If this game was still selling for the baseline 60, I would not recommend it at all, because there are other games that you can pay 60 for or even 70 that just feel better. I would say if you want a more down to earth gang type of experience, which is what Saints Row 3 is, do Saints Row 3 or do a GTA game, obviously. The characters are fun, the gameplay is fun, it just feels like it loses itself from the original formula that they had, you know, GTA, but whoa, we're a little wonky. But in the process of going to the fourth one, it felt like they didn't have a reason to go to the fourth one, and it only being 2 years later, feels like they just didn't let it cook in the oven enough. Things just feel a little off. It's just fine. It's close to not fine, honestly. Like, I'd rather spend my time elsewhere. So, it is what it is. As far as investing into the franchise, Saints Row, the reboot that came out not too long ago, was not very good. And so if you want Saints Row, you're looking at the third one and the fourth one. The second and first, I can't recall too horribly much, but I'm pretty sure I liked them just fine. Just as they went from first to second to third, they found themselves even more in how to differentiate from being like, we're like GTA. The third one is the epitome of the best of the franchise, in my opinion. And so the third and the fourth one, best means of investment. We might not get more Saints Row because Volition has shut down. So we don't know what's going to happen. The reboot bombed so hard that the studio shut down. So if you want to get into Saints Row, there is not going to be a next game anytime soon. We have to wait and see. Fingers crossed that the franchise finds a home somewhere and gets the true love that it deserves. As a whole, the game is fine. I would rate it a little bit below average to average. It's right at that middle range. It's just fine. Its greatest letdown for me is that because of the superpowers being so God mode, it does not feel like any of the charm or anything from Saints Row 3 that was like the gameplay and the way you interact with your crew and everything. It doesn't feel like that matters. And that wraps up our review for Saints Row 4. If you want any other delves into the past or other gaming news, I will have a link to some of the videos here, as well as just check out the rest of my channel. If you like the video, be sure to leave a like, drop a comment, drop a subscription for more videos, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.